All right, guys, welcome back to the Not Safe for Work podcast, where me and Sean talk. And if you put this shit on speakerphone, you're definitely gonna get fired. So let us know if you're at work in the comment section. But I think it's Good Friday over here. Where I am, it is a day off, but unfortunately, I do work for an American company, so technically I'm still working. But it's lunch break time. Sean, what you been up to, man?
Listen, I'm heated today. I'm real heated.
Really?
I was just about to buy Twitter, and then in comes Elon and screws the whole deal up for me. This is complete bullshit.
Dude, okay, so he wants to buy Twitter at what, like a $54 per share value, and that's what, $43 billion or something like that, right?
Yep.
Like, it's funny because as soon as that happened, I was literally like, I have to message Sean about some put options, man. I have to be like, yo, what do you think?
Dude, it's tough. So like, I know we're gonna get into like the real funniness of the two sides fighting each other and all the assumptions that are completely wild based on nothing. But before we even talk, to your point, before we even get into that, I had some leaps I had opened up a while back.
Yeah.
And I woke up to the news the other day and was like, "Wait, he's doing what?" And of course I went and my options were way up. Who knows where it's going to end, but I wanted to like not to make this completely about like the stock side of it, but I think now a lot of people are like, I want to jump in, I want to get into this. It's like,
right.
He's already set a price, right? So like whether someone accepts this or doesn't accept it, we sort of have an artificial or even temporarily artificial ceiling, right? So sometimes you get these arbitrage opportunities where like, if it sells for 54, whatever, 54.20, and let's just say it's at 40, maybe you can safely assume you're going to get that $12 coverage when they eventually buy your shares. That's an arbitrage opportunity in the world of M&A. The problem, though, is people are already – I mean, you would think this was like a transaction that's done, by the way. People are talking about this like, hey, good news, he bought it. He's firing the CEO. He's adding an edit button. And it's like all he did was float a rough number that hasn't been validated by anyone. And by the way, for anyone who's watching this, like I can write a letter that says, hey, I'll buy Twitter also for a tenth of a penny a share. Done. Funded. It doesn't mean I'm not getting the company. It's like not that simple. And it's funny because like the amount of attention look, we talked about Elon last week. This is why he's a genius. He is a marketing machine.
Yeah, man.
I mean, my God. And it's just wild to see this stuff. I love the background you made, by the way. The trigger is amazing. But what's your take on it? I mean, is this a serious thing? Is he really trying to buy this?
Yeah, I think, you know what? I think he's really trying to buy it, man. I'll be honest. Like, so before, remember the last pod, we talked about how he might, or I talked about how I thought he potentially might spin it off or do something else. And then he'd get a small percentage of the daily active users. And it would be what it is. It wouldn't be focused on ads or anything, but you still be able to serve ads and all this. And it would probably grow maybe in 10, 20 years or whatever the case is, if even we think about it. The reason why I thought that might have been successful actually is because, see, Twitter, in my opinion, I'm going to be very honest, I don't like Twitter at all. Like, not because of whatever the people say or something. I just think it's a really crappy platform. I think it does a really bad job of keeping people on the platform. I don't know the exact stats of it, but I feel like it's more like Facebook in a way. Like, it's from that era, right? It's like one of those first few like social media things to come out. So in that way, I feel like if Elon did do something, even if it's exactly the same as Twitter, like Sean, me and you both know that if we decided to make something exactly like Twitter, dude, we can do it in a week, right?
If anyone who thinks Twitter is like this gargantuan technology achievement, it's just a script with scrolling comments. I mean, that's all it is. It's like I could literally buy that script, no joke. I mean, I'm telling you, you guys can go on eBay, type in Twitter clone or Twitter script, and probably for like $12 and $1 a month to host it, you have your own Twitter. I mean, that's it. It's literally a script. It just runs in the background.
You're right. And I think the real reason Twitter is still like sort of alive, I think Twitter is a zombie company, to be very honest with you, just because I don't actually think they're good at marketing. They're 100% a marketing company, like in terms of their business, in terms of where they make their money. So that being said, if you look at it from that perspective, the actual platform or the side of it where marketers go in and try to serve ads and stuff like that, it's crappy. At least I haven't checked it in 6 months, but I'm willing to bet it's similar and it's still pretty crappy. People who are in the marketing sector don't specifically want to advertise on it, at least from the people I speak to, just because they'd rather do it on Instagram or they'd rather do it on TikTok is rolling out their new like sort of way how to do ads and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They'd rather do it there, right? So there's different ways of grabbing people's eyeballs, and Twitter seems like it's starting to become a massive echo chamber, kind of like Facebook is now for our parents, I guess, or whatever. but that in that reason, I feel like Elon would have done something else just to kind of shake things up a little bit. But that being said, now I don't think that this bid is going to go through, to be very honest, because I think a lot of people are pissed off, and that's what we'll talk about in this pod, right? But if it does go through, I think it actually could make a difference, because Elon would shake up a lot more than just the edit button. Just the way that he's sort of going about it and the things that are important to him, I think he's going to shake up a lot more. I don't think it's going to go through, but I'm kind of sort of hoping that it might, just a little bit.
Oh, I mean, I think what you said a second ago, though, is like such a great call out. I mean, Twitter is literally just a zombie business. It's we don't know why it's alive. It doesn't really generate any actual meaningful profit. And to your point, like I was saying this a couple weeks ago, I just started using TikTok and putting my own stuff on TikTok. My views on TikTok are like 10 to 100x the amount of views that I'm getting anywhere else. Now, I'm not saying there's necessarily a lot of value in there, but I'll tell you a funny thing that happened to me the other day. I was scrolling through the talk, and I suddenly realized, like, holy shit, these are ads. I didn't even realize I was seeing ads until I finally saw like a brand come on the screen. And I was like, wow, man, they just totally destroyed Twitter at their own scrolling game, because they were more fun. They're short videos. They can be entertaining, right? Like an ad should be. And because it's in the theme of like, look, every TikTok video scrolls by, you take 15 seconds to look at it, right? So like before I knew it, I probably had viewed like 100 ads and didn't even realize I was looking at them. Whereas on Twitter, the ads are, they're literally like, someone didn't tell Twitter that you can't just like take a magazine ad and throw it on my screen and I care. I've never clicked on an ad on Twitter. We say this all the time.
Never.
And I think to your point, like that's why they can't, there is no way to do it today in a way where I'm going to give a rat's ass about what Twitter's putting in front of me. I just don't care. And they also don't provide me enough value that I feel like I would want to pay for something either. Final point on that is the other thing, like you said, the frustrating thing about Twitter too is I can never find what I'm looking for. Like even sometimes I'm trying to look for my own stuff. I can't find it. Like, or like you could post something right now. I go in and all of a sudden it's buried. I'm never to be seen again.
That's just because you got canceled, bro. That's it. That's what it is. You just don't know it yet.
Totally. Very true.
No, it's true. But moving on to the point of this whole, like, I guess that's a good segue into like the whole cancel culture thing. Now, we did talk about this last part where it's like, I don't understand where all this hate is coming for Elon. The guy's literally like the impact that he's made, arguably, in my opinion. I mean, I'm a little bit of a fanboy, but I am one of those people that are critical. Like I shit on Alex Karp all the time, right? So like you have to keep your heroes in check. And in that measure, he's delivered even if you do that, he's delivered a lot more potential value and realistic value currently than like really anybody that in the past like 20 years. I mean, people always bring up Steve Jobs, but come on, I mean, it's a different story there, but it's not really comparable in my opinion. So with that being said, I really don't understand why people are getting so salty about this. Like, I bet you $100 that within Twitter, there was like a whole bunch of people that complained when Elon made that 9% acquisition or whatever. When he did that, there were a whole bunch of people complained. They're like, "Oh, please don't, put him on the board. We don't like certain decisions that he's making." Like half these people don't even understand the decision that he's potentially gonna make, right?
Sure.
And it's funny because now there's this theme here where it's like free speech is really the only speech that you care about. So it's not really free. It's only free for you. So it's almost like there's a tax on people that want to talk about something different from you. And unfortunately, the tax is cancellation. It's almost like a monarchy, not really. They exile you from the kingdom almost, right? If you say something a little different.
Well, there's a certain amount of irony here when you think about the fact that, like, I mean, Bezos owns Washington Post.
Right.
I mean, like, we're acting like this is some crazy thing. I mean, everybody hates Bezos. He's the most evil man on the planet, according to social media.
Lex Luthor, man. He's Lex Luthor.
Yeah, but he has not so much as even touched the Washington Post. He just, basically kept, I mean, let's be honest, without the money coming in here, all these places are dead.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 100%. Just the truth of the matter. And there is a bit of irony where, like, you know what I hate? I hate that everything has to be political. If we say something and I know what I'm about to say is going to get that reaction. It just, there's some things that are like very absolute where like something, you almost can't argue that that censorship is happening on Twitter. Like, can we argue that, or is that a fact? Can we agree that's a fact?
Absolutely, it's a fact. Yeah.
Like, putting aside why for a second, we know for a fact you can be censored on Twitter.
Yep.
To think that the number one reason people would not want new blood, new breath inside of Twitter is because he would possibly, no one knows, possibly uncensor a handful of people. I mean, come on, this can't be for real. You can't be screaming it's free speech and screaming, but we want to censor people. It's like, wait a minute, it doesn't work that way. Being offended is not the same as being hurt or being injured or causing a problem, right? Like, I mean, my gosh,
dude,
man.
You know what? I think this spins off. I'll be honest. This is a larger sort of social issue right now. I know where I am, like in Toronto, this is sort of, it's been a running theme, but it's not really been as bad as it is now. And I'm sure it's worse for you, like in terms of like the loudness of it. Yeah. But I think it all comes from the fact that, I mean, this is probably going to piss off some boomers, but realistically speaking, we technically have it a little bit harder, even though there's a lot of things that are easier, like information has never been more accessible, all that stuff. Like, I mean, I remember, I'm sure you remember when the internet sucked. Like, we used to have like flip phones and all this other kind of stuff, right? Like, we're old enough to remember that. But now everything's available on your fingertips, but it's still harder. Like, things that should be easier are really hard. Like, home ownership is hard. Getting jobs is very difficult. And it brings to, and Simon Sinek did a good talk on this, right? Where he's talking about millennials and all this. And I know there's Gen Z now, that's the focus. But the idea is, I think this really spun off from the end or the beginning of the millennial era, where like gig economy started becoming a thing. And even that's a margin game, right? If you're doing that kind of stuff, like you better have a Corolla, or you better have like some kind of low gas car, or else you're definitely gonna run the cost of like having too much higher of like operating expense, all this stuff. So all these things have started to become harder. I feel like people are just starting to become more and more entitled, rather than actually looking at it and being like, okay, what kind of stuff can I do to improve my life immediately? When things become more available, that's when things actually get hard, if you think about it, right? Because everyone has it. Like back in the day, when we were on a flip phone era and all this stuff, if you wanted to be informed, you either had to have really smart parents or like good upbringing and all this stuff, or you had to go to school and get education and listen to different people and validate your thoughts and go from there. Now I feel like people are they're like, oh, this guy said this on the internet, and as soon as you click that, they're going to feed you the same shit the next time. So it's like everyone is in their own little echo chamber. So when they hear stuff about Elon Musk, and right now we probably don't see it, but in other countries, like in third world countries and stuff like that, the feeds are absolutely false. Like there's this claims that
it's controlled. It's controlled. Agreed. Yeah. Totally agree. I actually like ran a Facebook experiment. This is probably 2-3 years ago. But before I even explain that, your point in like the most layman's terms possible is, when I first turned on social media, in theory, before they knew anything about me, 10 years ago, there was a funnel. It was really big at the top, and it had lots of different things that were coming at me from the funnel. And over time, the funnel shrinks and shrinks and shrinks and shrinks and shrinks, and you still think you're getting all of it.
Yeah.
What you don't realize is, like, by the time you get there, it's like this. And that's the ultimate issue here, is that you don't even realize that the news that you're getting is being paid to be delivered to you. Do you know who's got an amazing channel that is like so good to listen to? Is Russell Brand. Have you ever listened to his new channel?
I listened to one of his podcasts. Yeah,
dude. So first of all, it's so funny to hear Russell Brand is being like called like extreme, like alt-right Republican. It's like, what? Yeah. Russell Brand. And he did this thing where he pointed out the fact that basically, like, Pfizer, just as an example, sponsors like everything. And then immediately it's followed up by, like, make sure you get vaxxed. I'm not saying like whether you should or should, whatever. But like, they're 100% is like they're paying for all of it, all the sponsors and advertising. Everywhere you look, they're doing it. And it's like, well, it's like, it feels like it's part of normal life that a biopharmaceutical company should be telling you about the news. Like Channel 5, local, sponsored by Pfizer. Channel 7, local in your area, sponsored by Pfizer. It's like, wait a minute. Like, this isn't like a business to consumer company trying to sell me a phone. This is a biopharmaceutical company delivering medicines to the world. Agree or disagree with what they do. It just, like, why would they be so present every single place that we are? It's not to get investors, right? It's about making it feel comfortable, and it's a household name. But this goes back to the whole thing of your point. Years ago, I was doing this experiment on like advertising within Facebook. I needed to basically do like, so I started just like a random business page, put together like a real crappy little website, and I want to do a test of like where I can gain followers the fastest and the cheapest. And it was amazing because like the page went from like 0 to 40,000 followers so fast, so fast. And they were all 100% based in like, areas with the absolute worst poverty, the most controlling governments.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, like, the point of the exercise wasn't that I was expecting it to be quite that bad. And when I saw the way that I could then, no, of course I didn't, but I could have posted anything. And 40,000 people, by the way, you know how much that cost me? Like a few $100.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because like I'm trying to think, like Bangladesh, for example, it's literally a penny essentially per follower. I mean, it's not 1-to-1, but like it works out about that rate. Yeah. But not only did 40,000 people follow, but like millions were seeing what I was posting. And I was posting like totally generic stuff. It was a stupid thing about like landscaping or something, because I figured I'd pick something totally innocuous, right? Like, and I was thinking like, holy moly, 40,000 people just followed a page about landscaping. And all I would have had to do is like slowly start to get in there. Like I could easily have said, oh man, I would love to make my property look like this, but government won't let me. Here's why. Right. Or like, did you see what they did? They voted that guy out. That was illegal, right? Does anyone agree? Yeah. And little by little, you're like, you're realizing like, with a couple $100, I can influence 40,000 direct followers and then millions of people who view that ad.
Yeah.
And it can be totally innocuous. And there's so many great documentaries on Netflix right now that go into this idea of like how you're being tricked into believing things, whether they're true or not. And you said this a minute ago, like in these impoverished areas, they're being led to believe
anything, man.
Don't even exist.
Yeah, no, they believe, and part of the reason for that is because there's a hunger for information, right? That's the reality of things. Like even in the Indian community, which by the way I'm not really part of. It's just like my family's like in and out, and I'm in the WhatsApp group that keep reposting shit. But anyway, the idea is that there's an idea that people want to be first to the information, so they'll repost it and all this stuff, right? And that's fine. That's a human nature. They're like, oh, they want that validation. But the more important part is nobody fact checks, nobody validates. And I get that it's hard to fact check, and I get that it's more like, if it sounds like it's true to you, it might be true, right? But the problem is the level of the amount of people that start believing in this stuff. It can cause a real movement, which is I think the problem here. Like, I mean, look at the people in this thumbnail, like all these backgrounds here. Like some of these people, there's video proof of them arguing for really dumb shit. It's like, what are you talking about? You're clearly wrong, but how do you believe that so deeply? And like going back to this whole free speech thing. Like now if we move on to free speech. I know that people are always like, oh, Jack Dorsey's about free speech and this person's about free speech and this person. I think other than a few, maybe, like a Bill Maher or like a few other people that are sort of really, really adamant about it, maybe Elon to a certain degree and stuff like that, even Trump to a certain degree, they're definitely truly about free speech, right? You can tell because they were like, okay, you're allowed to say what you do, even though I'm going to insult you about it. That's up to you how you're going to deal with it or whatever, right? Like Trump is a pretty extreme case, of course. But what I'm saying is that people always pin it to Dorsey, but he could have done so much shit when he was at Twitter to mitigate some of this stuff, but he didn't, right? So for me, that's a little bit of a black mark, right? So I'm not willing to go that far. That's why I think Elon could potentially make a difference. But the real matter of the fact is that I think people are just really like, you have to have different means, especially when you think you're an echo chamber. You either have to roll back, and we talked about this in a few other pods where like I would purposely click different stuff just to get served something else, right? You have to do those things because unless you don't want to, if you're comfortable sitting in an echo chamber, that's fine, that's on you. But you can't react to it like that's all the information that's out there.
The bigger problem is how many people think they're even in one.
Yeah,
like there's a lot of people who are like, I mean, your picture here is hilarious of like the trigger to the screaming. Like that person very well might think they're totally open to the other side, and they don't even realize like their version of the other side is like 3 feet to the right, which is still extremely on the left, and same goes for the right side too. Like, it becomes like a false sense of like, I'm open to lots of ideas as long as I agree with them and they totally fit my own narrative, regardless of where you sit on things. Your comment though about Trump is Trump makes such the perfect case study in all of this because it's the most just the facts of the matter. A former president, whether you hate the guy, you love him, you could care less. Yeah. A former president is banned from Twitter.
That's messed up, man.
But Putin is still there. Terrorist leaders are still there. Like,
ISIS.
Whoa. Like, I get that he broke the rules, but like, what? what? Like, you just silenced a former president of the United States, and
and like you said, like with the whole Trump thing, like I was actually, I mean, I don't vote on the American politics and stuff, right? Because I'm Canadian, but if I had to, I definitely would not vote Trump or Hillary. I would abstain from that election. That's just my opinion, right?
Well, I think that's a fair call out, 100%. I feel the same
well,
way.
only because like for me, I go from side to side. Really, I don't care. Like I'm not really a red or blue kind of guy. Like for instance, over here, the Trudeau's up here, right? And he's taken a lot of flack or whatever. I voted for the guy, but not for the stuff that he's been doing or whatever. And before him, I voted for the Conservative Party. So the reason is I look at each individual thing, and there's always good and bad. Yep. But you got to see if the good outweighs the bad. And in Trudeau's case, it felt like it did at that very brief point. In Trump's case, I didn't like some of the environmental stuff that he was doing, so I was like, "Fuck this guy," like whatever, right? But I wasn't catering to the whole like all the ads that were placed for Hillary and all the gimmicks that were placed on Trump and all this other stuff. Like you have to understand that this is the life we live right now. This is the kind of environment that we're in. So it's a little bit hard to base your entire sort of judgment on just like a small, and you have to understand that it is a small amount of information that's coming to you, right? But that being said, like you're talking about the left and right. The funny thing is, I was listening to another YouTuber, and I won't say who it is because he's a pretty famous guy. But when he was talking about it, he's always talking about, oh, all you snowflakes, and you guys hate Elon, you guys are so stupid. Like I don't care if you don't subscribe, unsubscribe, and all this other stuff, right? Like that's fine. But the funny thing is, even him, who's supposedly all about free speech, in many of his videos will be like, oh, this is what I think it is. If you don't believe this, you're just stupid. And it's like, dude, you're literally counteracting your own point. Like, how many people are really talking about this? Like, you can think that way, and that's fine to think that way. But for you to put that on your platform and say, I'm about free speech, but if you don't believe in the stuff that I'm talking about, you're clearly an idiot, right? So it's like, I feel like this is, somebody said it best. I can't remember who it was, but they were saying that this is literally like a social virus that has taken over, our society's brains pretty much.
Just going back to the example of silencing a former president, I guess the part that I can't get my head around, and I'm being totally serious here, is two things. Number one, it speaks to the power of Twitter and why it has to be run the right way, because since they did that, he's essentially invisible.
Yeah,
in the modern
his entire digital copy's been deleted, right?
He doesn't exist. I mean, the only place you ever hear his name, which is funny, is when like Biden and Psaki are talking about things and stuff. But because he has no news coverage, he's not on social media. And you can hate him and think that this is great, by the way. That's fine. All I'm saying is it proved the point that Twitter controls elections and the voice of the people. But the one thing that stands out to me that I cannot get my head around is just block the people you don't want to hear. If you absolutely despise the guy, just block him and you don't have to see it. I mean, the problem is now what these people have done is they've said, I don't want to see it and you can't see it.
Do you know what I think is really happening, Sean?
Hit me.
I'm gonna tell you right now. I think what's happening is, how, like, for example, in like the before the 50s, there weren't as many like gay people or whatever, homosexual people, and then all of a sudden, like, they're kind of like a lot of people are gay or whatever the case is, right? I think they've always been around, but it was societally bad, right? In the same way, I think I think a lot of the people on social media now are basically outing themselves as masochists. They like that shit. They like to follow Trump and get offended, like, oh, I'm offended, and they like it. I don't know. It's like, it's weird. It's like,
great. No, you're right, dude. That is so. It is so true what you just said. Wow, that's a great point. Like,
they're masochists, man. It's like people like that shit. It's weird. And think about it. Now that it's gone, all the discourse about like Trump this, Trump that, which was actually quite entertaining, to be honest with you, listening to it from both sides, right? Is gone, and now it's like kind of stale a little bit. Like you kind of missed the guy almost. I hate to say it.
well, so like let's shift back to Twitter with this Elon thing for a second.
Yeah.
All the employees are quitting ahead of time because he might. Yeah, they've had some attrition over there, and people are posting about it like, I won't be part of this. What? Like, nothing has happened yet.
I guess they don't like money, if that's the case. So whatever.
I guess that's what I don't understand is like, how can anyone function in the modern world? I'm in my late 30s. Okay, so I was here before the internet and post internet. Okay, so like, we were growing up, we didn't have computers in the house, we didn't have any stuff. So, but it's interesting to be this age because I got to watch it come into being. Right, no one had cell phones, so like I was right at the edge of one thing as a new thing was starting, and it's funny because like this idea of like I can't work somewhere because in theory there might be someone I don't like there. Hey, good for you. I got no beef with that. What I'm saying is like you just you just like this person that much that you're quitting your job. Like stay and try to change his mind. I mean, like have some guts. Like this it's the quit culture. And this is what I find. It's like cancel culture doesn't work, then it becomes quit culture.
Yeah.
And it's on both sides, by the way. It's not one side or the other, too.
Oh,
To be totally clear here. Like I just don't understand. And sort of a lot of the arguments that I'm seeing lately is like, God, man. I mean, I actually, you know what? Last week we talked about Elizabeth Warren and Elon, and it's so funny to hear what he's done just in a week. By the way, might I add? You know, I was thinking to myself, like, she must literally be like, "What the fuck do I have to do now?"
I bet you the first thing that Elon's going to do as soon as he gets on Twitter is basically cancel Elizabeth Warren. Just the one person. That's it. That'll be hilarious as hell.
I mean, it's so funny too because like I can already tell you too, I haven't seen her release anything yet, and this is pure speculation. I can totally see her coming out being like, "This is what I'm talking about. He shouldn't have this kind of money. It's not right." But when the entire premise of the problem is, if his entire approach to this was like, I want what I want to say should have a voice. I want only the right to have a voice. I want Elon's voice to matter more than anyone else's. Well, sure, you could fight him all day on that. He's wrong.
Right.
Coming in and saying like, look, I just don't think it's being run in a fair way. If you come out and say, I mean, this is again my opinion here. If you're going to now come out and be like, he shouldn't be allowed to do this, it's like, what are you saying he shouldn't be allowed to do exactly?
Yeah.
Because we seem to have no problem silencing politicians in the U.S., which is absolutely, by the way, if you told me 20 years ago, we would silence our own politicians.
Yeah.
What? No. Impossible. Man, that's an impossible thing that could happen. It's silly and it's childish. And Marcus, yeah, agree. Like, it's so vogue to be like, I'm not dealing with this.
Yeah. Dude, you know what's funny? On that note, but like I want to ask you about like the whole like election and Trump thing because it's been coming up again lately. But on that note, I had a guy 2 weeks ago quit because you know GitHub and they're changing their major branches instead of master to main. Have you heard about that?
No.
So when you check in code, you check in the trunk, which is called master branch, right? So they changed it to main because of the whole like master is derogatory or whatever the case is. There's a hierarchy there. It's fine. It's whatever. Like I don't care about it. For me, it's just it's a nomenclature or just terminology, right? So this guy quit because the company was like, yeah, we're not going to change it to main because we have too many things on our side that's already master. And it's not that much of a problem, but this is not a big concern for us. Let's just focus on the task at hand. And the guy was like, you know what? I don't support this. This is a social thing. Everyone is doing it. Why aren't we doing it? I'm leaving. And it's like, okay, well, you're lucky that the job market's hot, but other than that, you're an idiot. But, it is what it is. It's like, whatever, man. But anyway, with the whole Trump thing, it's been coming up again. People are saying he's going to run again. Even Bill Maher, I think, had a talk with like Ben Shapiro or whatever. And he's like, oh, if Trump runs again, I have no doubt that he's going to almost win or come close to getting a lot of votes. I actually think he might not just because his entire digital identity was destroyed, like absolutely obliterated. So I feel like if Biden ran against Trump again, Biden would take him by a landslide. I'm not picking sides. I'm just saying.
I think a scarier thing is that could even be Biden versus Trump is so terrifying to me to think that that's the two best options we have.
You think so? That's terrifying.
Listen, we've got one guy who is trying to shake hands when no one's there, can't finish the sentence, and I'm not making fun of him. I mean, it's just like it's literally the truth. You can watch a video and see it. And then another guy,
with no one,
huh?
He shook hands with no one?
There was a speech the other night. It's all over social again, where he turned around, like put his hand out to shake it, and there was literally no one there. And I was
my God.
Now I'm sure there's a story behind it and whatever, right? It's funny, but like you're just like, oh my God, man. And then on the Trump side, though, it's just as bad. Where like his digital, you nailed it, right? He digitally has been deleted. Yeah. So I don't think he could win anyways. Whether or not he should run, I don't think. First of all, the main problem is he's also tied up in a ton of lawsuits and investigations. If you think they're all completely bullshit, that's cool too. But either way, they're still going on. So it's like, do you really want, as a country and as a people, I literally vote in the middle. Like I vote on specific things that I like or don't like, and that's the way I vote. So sometimes I vote left, sometimes I vote right. It depends. Because the truth is, 98% of everything is completely reasonable. It's just 1% on each end is cuckoo town. So it's like, as far as most of these things go, it's not that different where you land. But then I started thinking too, like, let's say I think Biden's too old to run again. Just
Okay.
That's my opinion. So let's just say he can't run. Let's say Trump doesn't run because
isn't Trump just like a few years younger than him? I guess
yeah, I don't think. But what I'm saying too is, like, do you really think the Republican Party is going to back Trump? I don't know.
See, that's the question. So for me, I'm hearing, and I listen to both sides of the news because I'm interested, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I'm hearing that there are large parts of the Republican Party that don't give a shit about Trump. But the fact is, who are they going to put up against him?
Well, the problem is, like, let's use an example. Take like Ron DeSantis down in Florida.
Okay, got it. Yeah,
he's got a huge base. Yeah. The problem is, he is. If you're, I want to say this just because I want to make sure if you just catch this part of this, I'm not suggesting he's good or bad. I'm just political science approach to this. In order for a Republican president to win now, they need to be votable by a Democrat. Okay. So the question then is, are Democrats going to jump over to vote for Trump? I don't see any way. I think a lot of people won't vote, but like putting that aside, I don't see Democrats jumping ship to vote for Trump again. I don't see that. And I also definitely don't see the people who jumped over for Biden voting for Biden.
Got it.
So
really? Okay.
I just don't think, Biden,
what is it? Is it the Ukraine thing? What is it that's a mark on Biden from, like,
his approval ratings in the 30% range?
Oh shoot! Really?
I mean, that's insane. That's like that's hard to even get my head around. Like, that's terrible. But the question is, on the Democratic side of it, I mean, Kamala Harris. Oh my gosh, I have never seen someone master saying nothing ever of meaning. Yeah. And I'm not, again, I think there are so many qualified people out there who would have been great, but they didn't go that direction. And the problems on the Republican side is what they've done is they've shrunk down what the public thinks a Republican person looks like.
Yeah.
So like they can't. There's just like Ron DeSantis. He's a veteran. He's done a lot of good things in Florida. I think a lot of people will disagree with that. So you're open to it. But like his problem too, though, is he seems so much like Trump that the two of them would bump against each other and they'd both lose. And yeah. I don't think he'd want to be the vice president too with Trump. So I don't think that would work. So then it becomes like, is there a third option? Who else would run? Because if you think back to the last when Trump won the primary, it was like Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz.
Right. Ted Cruz,
but same thing with the Democrats. Like they were dropping like flies in that thing. It was ugly.
Oh yeah.
I mean, dude, people are. You want to talk about pathetic? People are still talking about Hillary versus Trump. Are you kidding?
Really?
This is the best we can do. Yeah, really. I mean,
okay.
Guys.
You want to know something funny though? The only thing I would look at for Hillary versus Trump is what's it called? Have you heard of epic rap battles?
Oh yes, of course.
So that epic rap battle was epic as hell, man. If no one's watched it, go check out epic rap battle Trump versus Hillary. It is amazing. But anyway, yeah.
Well, right now, actually airing on TV is American True Crime season 3, which is the Clinton impeachment. Marcus, I don't know, man. I like to keep my hair and stay young. No, thank you. No one's voting for me in the middle.
You're too young for that, man. They have 30 years on you, right? You got to be at least 70 to run, apparently.
Yeah, apparently. I know it'd be so funny too. Can you just imagine running and being like, "Hey, I just think everyone should treat each other well with respect and try to help each other out." They'd be like, "Oh, you piece of shit. We don't want. Who wants that?" You know.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Marcus you're so right, man. Yeah, it's one of those funny things where like, no matter who you look at, whether it's like the Dorsey and his version of free speech and Elon and his version, or whoever it is going to be, it's like, come on, there's more options than falling off the side. I mean, come on. Yeah, and I think what many people miss here, and this is I'm saying this with a cautionary tale. Sometimes we think about this as being a line. A linear path, right? You're all the way left and you're all the way right. I don't think at all that's. I think this is a 360.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
I think that right, like the extreme right and the extreme left are the same exact people. They just don't know it. They just don't know it. They touch to the top of the circle and they have no idea that they're the exact same people saying the same things. making the same points. Like the more extreme you are, the more you have to be like the person who's on the opposite end of that spectrum.
See, this is why I think Elon would make a difference though with Twitter, right? Because he'll sort of let the whole floodgates open. And yes, in the beginning, there's going to be a lot of like, issues with the fallout of it. It's going to be crazy. People are going to go wild. There's going to be riots or whatever the case. Lots of marches, I'm sure. But what I'm thinking is, as these things open up, people like myself and yourself, who are a little bit more in the moderate, sort of like in the middle, will start talking, because we're like, okay, we're not exactly going to be in the right or wrong. Now it's a blue or white game, right? If you say one thing and you get labeled as blue, you're blue for life. So people will start actually expressing themselves. And there's actually a lot more of people like us, like who are sort of one way or another, depending
by definition. It's a bell curve. I mean, by the mathematical definition, there is, of course, more in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's an old, I think it's a Chinese saying, but it's like, the emptiest pot makes the loudest noise, right? So the polar opposite. It's like,
that's really good.
It's like they're making the loudest noise, and that's why people are being noticed on that side. But in reality, there's a lot more of us in the middle, just sort of taking the information in, right? So I don't know. That's what it is, but I don't know. That's why I think Elon. I don't think the bid's going to go through, but if it does, I think there's going to be a huge change. Because when's the next election? 24, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So 2 years of free speech Twitter would probably make a big impact. I think people will have, even if one or the other doesn't win, let's say it's Trump and Biden, even if Trump or Biden, get like a landslide victory, it would be a fair landslide victory. It would be something where people actually get a chance to experience and understand the differences of like the things that are being said on social media platforms and stuff like that. So, and by the way, Twitter sucks on ads anyway, so there's no way they can force you to do one thing or another. They're just doing that by themselves from a management perspective on Twitter. So it'll remove that, and then I think that'll open up the floodgates to like actual free speech. So that's my take on that. But I don't know. What do you think, man?
I mean, whether we want to talk about Twitter from speech, profitability, ads, no matter how you approach this company, it's not working.
Yeah.
And I think unfortunately a lot of people who use it don't understand that, like, you're not paying anything for this and you're not clicking on the ads.
Yeah. Something's
got to give. And I'm telling you, like, when I bought the Leaps, just to get back to that for a second, when I bought the Leaps a little while back, it was for anyone who doesn't watch our other channels. Leaps are essentially long-term option calls, over a year long, typically much longer than that. So I bought these long-term calls, and it was because I just couldn't help but think, like, look, one of two things has to happen. They're going to implode because they can't make any money, and they're going to end up having to censor everybody, especially with this new CEO, or they're going to have to finally get some new management who's going to go and try to change things. I erred on the side of, we got to find a way to make money here. So whether I'm right or wrong, I don't know. Elon certainly is helping me make my case, but I think that there's this problem of, I know we got to jump in like 1 minute. There's a problem of amplification within an echo chamber, to your point exactly, which is like, one person in their basement can create 1,000 accounts with 1,000 free Gmail emails. And now you've got 1,000 likes, and the algorithm's like, whoa, people love this. Let's push it more. And before you know it, you have an alien from Mars running for president because he wants to take over Earth, and that's the secret that people say, like, come on, that's crazy things don't happen. What do you think? Like, what do you think a bot is? It's not magic. Yeah. It's a warehouse full of people with 1,000 logins, all hitting like at the same time on the same thing. So it's like, there's no way to validate what's real and what's not, and that's the hardest part. And the fact checkers also can't do it because, let's be honest, they don't have access to a lot of the real information either.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So. No, I think we'll end with that. But guys, like, if you could take anything from this pod, just always check to see what you're reading is actually true, especially if it is something that, like, for me, if something rings well with me, I always double check to see the other side, just because you have to nowadays, not because I want to. It's easier to just absorb the information you want. But the idea is that, like, I don't want to be skewed one way or another. I don't like the feeling that someone is pulling my strings. So, I usually look at the other side just to pull myself back to the middle a little bit. Totally up to you. But it looks like Elon is really serious about this bid, and let's see what he does in the next few weeks. We'll see, man.
Yep.
All right. Until the next time, hopefully if we were on speakerphone or something, we didn't get you fired. But we will catch you guys next Friday. Thank you all for joining. Catch y'all later. Peace.
See everybody.